The night is soft, and it waits for you. You lie back, your eyes heavy, the weight of the present slipping from your chest as if it were sand spilling from a broken vessel. There is a hush in the air, not quite silence, not quite sound-like. The breath of a world waiting to reveal itself. You exhale slowly, and the room round you seems to dim. The corners blur, the walls fade, and what remains is only the rhythm of your own pulse, steady, patient, leading you deeper into another time. You do not walk there, you drift. The first thing you notice is the air it is warmer, touched by the faint perfume of crushed petals and burning oil lamps. A breeze brushes against your cheek, carrying whispers of something old, something careful, something that does not belong to your century. You sense it before you see it. The Mughal Empire rising like a dream from the soil of India. Its marble palaces glimmering, its gardens precise as prayer. Its courtyards alive with footsteps and the hum of life. You stand at the edge of a long, marble platform. Beneath your bare feet, the stone is cool, smoothed by centuries of passage. Before you stretches a pool, its surface unbroken, except where the moon lays its reflection across the water. The ripples from a passing breeze bend the silver light into shapes, then restore it again, as if the water itself were practicing. Memory, beyond the pool rise arches carved with verses, every stroke of script glowing faintly in the TORCHLIGHT dot. The world feels slower here, deliberate. A sound draws your attention, the tap of sandals on stone. Soft but insistent. You turn, and there a figure approaches. He is clothed in white, the folds of his robe moving like waves as he walks. In his hand he carries a lantern, its flame trembling as though unsure of its own right to exist. His face is kind but unreadable, his eyes fixed not on you but on the horizon behind you. He does not speak at first. Instead, he sets the lantern at your feet, and the pool beside you glows brighter, as if its depths have been stirred awake. Finally, he says, in a voice like the last note of a prayer, time is softer than you believe. Tonight, you do not watch history. Tonight, you walk inside it. The words fall into you like seeds. You want to answer, but your voice is caught in the stillness. He does not seem to mind. He simply gestures toward the arches, where an opening waits, a shadowed passage stretching deeper into the palace. You step forward, and with each movement, the sound of your world fades further. The hum of electricity, the ticking of clocks, the sharpness of your century's noise all dissolve. What remains is the slow burn of oil lamps, the soft scuff of cloth against stone, the low breath of a living empire. The passage narrows, the lantern light spilling against walls painted with miniature scenes. You trace them with your eyes. Kings in jeweled turbans, women seated in hidden chambers, poets bending over scrolls, gardens ranged like verses of the Quran. Each image seems to shimmer as you pass, as if it recognizes you, as if it remembers that you will one day remember. Your guide does not speak again. He only leads you through the long corridor until it opens, suddenly, into a courtyard. And there, you are stopped not by walls, not by guards, but by the sheer vastness of silence. The courtyard is enormous, paved in stone, yet it does not feel empty. It feels alive, above you. The sky is caught in the last breath of dusk, not yet night, not still day. The horizon is painted in deep violets and pale golds, as if the heavens themselves hesitate between choices. And in that hesitation, something stirs. You see it on the far wall, a line of script, faint and glowing, as if written not in ink but in the breath of stars. The words are unfamiliar, yet your body reacts before your mind does. You shiver, your chest tightening, because something in you knows this script is not meant for the day. It is meant for dusk only. The line trembles, almost vanishing. then strengthens again, as if the very air were deciding whether to let it exist. Your guide steps back, giving you room, his eyes lowered. You are left alone before the wall, the fading script glowing softly. You lean closer, but the words blur the harder you stare, as though they will not allow themselves to be captured by focus. You understand then, instinctively, that this is the beginning of the myth whispered for centuries, the language that could only be written at dusk. A breeze rises, the torches flicker, and the letters begin to fade, slow this time, until they are no more than a shadow, a memory of light on stone. Your breath catches. You feel as though you have witnessed something fragile, something that should not have survived the weight of history. And yet here it is, shown only to you. The silence of the courtyard folds over you again, pressing gently, urging you to hold this moment carefully. And in that silence, you hear it. Not a voice, not exactly, but a presence. It speaks inside you, not with words, but with certainty. You will walk through their nights. You will see what they feared, what they loved, what they buried in whispers. But only if you're willing to slow down, to leave behind the pace of your age and surrender to theirs. Your eyelids feel heavier. Though you are not tired, rather, you are sinking. Deeper and deeper into their rhythm. The courtyard, the wall, the arches, everything begins to blur again. But this time, you do not return to yourself. You move further in. You drift toward the line you cannot read, the one that appears only at dusk. You drift toward the chambers beyond it, toward the secrets of the Empire, and with each step, you feel yourself dissolving into them, as though your body were made not of flesh, but of ink ready to be written into their story. The guide lifts the lantern once more. He does not speak. He does not need to. You're ready. No, the journey has begun, and somewhere deep in the palace, someone whispers a line you cannot quite hear. It echoes, faint, but it clings to you as you vanish into the passage. History does not remember the loudest voices. It remembers the ones written when no one was watching. The words wrap round you like a lullaby. You are no longer here. You are there. The air shifts as you leave the courtyard behind. The arches narrow, and with each step, you feel as though you are walking deeper into someone else's breath. The light dims, the guide's lantern trembles against the stone, its glow stretching, bending, pulling shadows into long shapes that slither across the walls. You sense it before you know it. The Empire is not just marble and gardens. It is voices, hidden, waiting. The fragrance rises, sudden and startling. Not the open perfume of flowers, not the incense of worship. This is sharper, stranger, like paper, warmed by flame, like ink still wet and breathing. You inhale without meaning to, and the scent runs through you, curling in your lungs, making your chest feel both heavy and awake. Your guide pauses at the threshold of a chamber. He tilts his lantern just enough that you glimpse what lies within, a hall, not vast, not grand, but alive in a way no throne room could ever be. Scrolls line the walls, stacked in careful disorder. Their edges curled, their colors deep as pomegranate. Skin, tables are scattered across the floor, low wooden slabs etched with stains of pigment. All lamps hang from chains, their flames swaying as if moved by the heartbeat of the room itself. And then, the sound. At first it seemed like the hush of wind through reeds, soft, broken, trembling. But as your ear adjusts, you realize it is voices, dozens of them, not loud, not shouting, but whispering in threads that weave together, tangled, impossible to separate. Each voice is low, steady, carrying words you cannot fully understand. The cadence rises, falls, swells, recedes, until the room itself seems to breathe with them. You step inside. The voices do not stop. Scribes sit cross-legged at the tables, their robes pale, their hands dark with ink. Their eyes do not lift us. You enter. Their brushes move quickly, dipping into bowls, racing across parchment, stopping only to whisper, then beginning again. It is then you realize the whispers you hear are not speech to one another. They are the words themselves, spoken aloud as they are written. Each brushstroke is a sound. Each curve of ink is a syllable. One man leans close to his parchment, his lips moving so faintly you strain to hear. At dusk, it remains. His brush swirls a line of black across the page, then pauses, waiting. Another voice across the room catches the unfinished thread and continues beyond the reach of day. His brush curves downward, the letters glistening for a heartbeat before sinking into the fibers of the paper. You feel the back of your neck prickle. You realize you are not listening to conversation. You are listening to an incantation scattered across a dozen throats, caught in a dozen hands, yet somehow weaving one voice. The air vibrates. Your guide does not enter. He remains at the threshold, lantern low, his eyes lowered. This place is not for him. It is for you. You move forward, closer to the nearest scribe. His brush is quick, his hand steady. The words he writes glow faintly as the dusk light filters through the lattice window. For a moment, you almost recognize them, almost grasp their meaning. But then the glow fades, and the letters lie flat, unreadable, as if ashamed of your gaze. The whispers tighten, the voices rise, just slightly. You feel them pressing into your ears, into your chest, into the hollow of your ribs. You cannot tell if they are outside you or inside you now. The language is not one you know, yet the rhythm touches something old in you, something that feels like remembering. You blink, and the room shifts. The lamps flicker, and for a heartbeat you see not scribes but shadows. Their mouths still move, their brushes still trace, but their faces blur, their features vanishing into smoke. The parchment curls and unrolls, alive, trembling. The words leap and fade, as if refusing to be owned by the paper. You shut your eyes, but the whispers remain, louder now, climbing like vines round your thoughts. You open your eyes, gasping, and the chamber steadies. The scribes remain, human, tired, intent on their work. One looks up at you for the first time. His eyes are red from sleeplessness, but they do not waver. He holds your gaze for a long, still moment. His lips do not move, yet you hear him, clearer than the whispers, clearer than your own breath. Do not look too long. It does not belong to the day. You stumble back. His brush slows again. He does not look at you anymore. The whispers resume their endless sweep. Your guide finally enters, only enough to touch your sleeve, steadying you. He says nothing. He does not need to. You already know you have stepped into the Empire's first secret. Its words are alive, but only at dusk. They breathe, they glow, they resist the eyes that do not belong to them. And if you stare too long, they begin to stare back. The chamber closes round you, soft, suffocating. The whispers rise again, relentless, and through them, through the ink and the breath and the glow, you feel it. The Empire is not stone, not crown, not sword. It is this, the fragile persistence of words written when the world cannot see. You turn away, your pulse loud in your ears. The scent of ink clings to you, sharp and restless. As you step back through the threshold, into the corridor where the lantern waits, the whispers follow you, soften now, but refusing to vanish. They will not vanish. Not until you have followed them deeper. The corridor narrows again. Your guides. Lantern sways, its flame thin and uncertain, and you realize that since you entered this place you have not eaten, not drunk, not even paused to rest. Hunger is not sharp, it is dull, heavy, pulling at the inside of your ribs. Your throat scratches as if lined with dust. You wonder if it is from the ink that clung to you in the hall, or if the Empire itself wishes to keep you thirsty. You try to steady yourself. In the mule world, survival is never guaranteed. Not in the palaces with jeweled floors, not in the bazaars crowded with spice and silk. It is earned breath by breath, task by task, hour by hour. And in this hidden chamber of words, survival means something stranger still. Your guide leads you through another arched passage. The walls are rougher here, less polished, as though the Empire did not intend this part to be seen. The air thickens. You hear a drip of water, steady, echoing. Your tongue presses against your teeth, longing for it. But when you turn, you see only a narrow stone channel. The water within it is dark, sluggish, as though reluctant to move. Your stomach groans. The sound embarrasses you, though no one hears it but the guide. He does not turn, but his pace slows slightly, as though acknowledging your weakness without naming it. You realize this is part of the test. You are not meant to be comfortable. You are meant to feel what the scribes feel, the ache of hunger that sharpens the hand, the dryness that makes the lips whisper softer, closer to silence. You enter another chamber. This one is plainer, its walls bare, its lamps few. The floor is covered in thin mats. Scribes sit in rows, their backs straight despite exhaustion. Before them lie bowls of food untouched. You recognize coarse bread, lentils, small piles of dates. The air carries the faint sweetness of cardamom. Your hunger stirs sharply now, but no one eats. Their hands hover above the food, waiting. Their brushes rest on their knees. You watch, confused, until you notice the windows, then slits near the ceiling, letting in the last light of dusk. The glow is fading fast. You realize they are waiting. They cannot write yet, because it is not yet the right moment. And until the first word is written, no one may eat. Your throat tightens. You want to step forward, to break a piece of bread, to let it ease into your mouth. But something in the air stops you, the weight of eyes, though no one looks at you. The rule unspoken yet absolute. Words first, body later. The light dims further. The last ray of dusk falls across the mats. One scribe lifts his brush. His lips part, whispering. His hand begins to move. The others follow, one by one. Like sparks catching in dry grass, the chamber fills with the sound again. That strange layered murmur. Ink flows. Letters form. Breath carries meaning, only when. The first page is filled, only when the whispers steady. Do the scribes lower their brushes? Only then do their hands reach for food. They eat silently, methodically. As if each bite is part of the ritual, the bread is torn gently, dipped into, the lentils lifted slowly to the lips. No haste, no greed. You sit among them now. A bowl is placed before you. The bread is rough against your fingers, the lentils warm, the dates sweet on your tongue. The first taste nearly makes you gasp. It is not abundance, it is survival, and yet, in this moment, it feels sacred. You realize that in this place, hunger is not weakness. It is the thread that binds you to the words. You must be empty before you can receive them. The meal ends as quietly as it began. The bowls are gathered. The mats straightened. The scribes return to their brushes. You feel the ache in your stomach calm. But the ache in your chest remains, because you understand now. Survival here is not only about food or water. It is about obedience to the rhythm of dusk. to the silence between whispers, to the demand that your body bend to the will of words. Yet beneath that obedience, another struggle begins. A voice within you, faint but insistent. What if I do not belong here? The question presses against your ribs. You glance around. The scribes do not look at you. Their faces are pale with exhaustion. Their eyes lowered to the page, and yet you feel their silence press on you, as if they know, as if they are waiting to see whether you will falter. You try to still your hands, but they tremble. You try to breathe evenly, but your chest is tight. You imagine lifting a brush, dipping it into ink, trying to follow the rhythm of their whispers. You imagine the letters refusing you, the ink blotting, the page rejecting your hand. You imagine their faces turning at last, not in welcome, but in recognition of your failure. The voice inside grows louder. Maybe I should not have come here. Maybe the dusk is not meant for me. Maybe the empire itself will push me out. You close your eyes. The whispers rise round you, and in the darkness, you feel both the weight of your doubt and the pull of something deeper. The struggle is not just hunger or thirst. It is the fight to remain, to accept that even in your trembling, you are part of this place now. When you open your eyes, the chamber glows faintly. The ink shines for a heartbeat, as though agreeing to your presence, and then it fades again, leaving only the words on the page, steady, silent. You breathe. You are still here, for now. The night has fallen, but not completely. It is that delicate hour when the last of the sky clings to a bruised purple, when the air holds its breath before surrendering to darkness. Your guide does not need to speak. You know this hour matters. Dusk is the boundary, and boundaries always demand ritual. You walk barefoot now. The mats beneath your feet are rough. Carrying the dust of countless steps before yours, the scribes file into another chamber, larger than the rest, its ceiling high, its walls carved with patterns that catch the lantern light like flowing water. At the center stands a low stone platform, circular, worn smooth by time. Round it, brass lamps burn steadily, their flames small but insistent, as if protecting the circle from the night pressing against the walls. You are motioned to sit, cross-legged, silent. Your hands resting on your knees, the air smells of sandal wood soft, sweet, lingering. A bowl of smoke rises from the center of the circle, its tendrils curling upward, twisting as though they too are writing letters into the air. One by one, the scribes begin. Each holds a brush, but no parchment. Their lips move, whispering the same words you heard in the earlier halls, but now slower, more deliberate. Their voices layer upon one another. A hum that is both chant and breath, neither loud nor soft, but constant. You lean forward slightly. The whispers form a pattern. At first it seems random syllables colliding, fragments dissolving, but then your ear catches the rhythm. A phrase repeats. You hear it once, then again, until it carves itself into you. Tum serve kidmet gar nahin ho, tum nazar ho, tum karboni ho. You are not just a servant. You are the gaze. You are the offering. The words sink into you like water into stone. They echo across the chamber, across your skin, across the thin place between thought and breath. You realize this is no ordinary writing. It is a prayer, a surrender, a vow. The ritual begins with silence. Each scribe dips their brush into a bowl of ink, but does not write. They lift the brush high, hold it steady, as if offering it to the smoke itself. Their eyes close, their lips keep moving, carrying the words forward. Then, as one, they lower the brushes to the stone floor, not parchment stone. The ink spills onto the surface, dark and glistening, forming circles, lines, shapes that dissolve almost instantly. The stone drinks the ink as if hungry for it. leaving only faint stains that shimmer before fading. You feel a shiver run through you. This is writing that does not survive. Writing that is meant only for the moment. A ritual not to preserve memory, but to release it. The belief is clear. Some words are too sacred to belong to tomorrow. They must live and die in the same breath. The chants grow louder. You feel them against your chest. Like a drum no hand has struck. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you are no longer a guest. You are part of the circle, your breath joining. There's your silence woven into the ritual. Images flash behind your closed eyes. Not dreams, not thoughts, but fragments carried by the chant. A river swollen at monsoon, its water black with ink. A temple courtyard where words rise like birds at dusk. A hand reaching, trembling, leaving a single stroke that glows before vanishing. You open your eyes, startled. The chamber is steady. The smoke curling, the scribes unmoved, yet the images linger, etched into your mind as though they were memories, not visions. The repetition continues. The phrase returns again. Tum serve kidmet gar nahin ho, tum nazar ho, tum kaboni ho. It no longer feels like something you're hearing. It feels like something you're becoming. Your throat tightens. You want to speak it, to let the words leave your lips, but you hesitate. Are you allowed? Will the Empire accept your voice, or reject it? The silence stretches inside you, heavier than hunger. Finally, you whisper, barely audible, yet enough. The moment you speak, the smoke shifts. A tendril curls toward you, brushing against your face. It smells of ink and ash, of parchment burnt and gone. The scribes do not react, yet you feel the circle notice you. You are no longer invisible. You have been heard. The ritual swells. The brushes move faster now, streaks of ink slushing across the stone, vanishing before your eyes. The chants grow sharper, rising and falling in waves. You realize the purpose of it. Not to keep the words, but to release the burden they carry. The Empire does not want memory to linger too long. It wants to invite itself, night after night. So it may begin again at the next dusk. You think of all the histories you have read, all the stories carved into stone, into manuscripts, guarded in libraries. And then you think of these words that live for an hour and then vanish. You feel a pang of grief, of war. Perhaps truth is not what survives. Perhaps truth is what dissolves. Refusing to be owned by time. Your chest feels heavy, yet strangely free. The chant slows, the brushes lower, the smoke thins. One by one, the scribes place their brushes down, bow their heads, and close their eyes. The ritual has ended. Silence fills the chamber. Vast and unbroken, you sit among them, trembling. Slightly, you realize you have taken part in something you cannot explain, something that will not exist tomorrow, and yet, in your bones, it will remain. You remember the phrase. It lingers, steady, insistent. You are not just a servant. You are the gaze. You are the offering. The thought will follow you for the rest of the story. The ritual has ended, but its echo remains. You feel it in the hush that follows, in the way the smoke still curls lazily above the stone circle, as if reluctant to leave. The scribes rise one by one, their movements unhurried, their faces unreadable. Without a word, they motion for you to follow. You obey, still shaken, still carrying the weight of words that were never meant to last. The corridor that follows is narrow, lined with torches that burn without flicker. Their flames are steady and natural, as though shielded by something unseen. The air here is warmer, thicker, carrying a faint tang of iron. Your footsteps echo louder in this space, each sound a reminder that you are leaving ritual behind and entering something more absolute. At the corridor's end stands a heavy door of blackened wood, reinforced with iron bands. Its surface is carved, not with decoration, but with rules lines upon lines of script so sharp they seem to cut into the wood itself. You recognize none of the words. Yet their presence is enough to silence you. This is law made visible. Law, heavy enough to press against your chest before you even cross the threshold. When the door groans open, the world inside feels colder. The chamber is vast, rectangular. Its walls lined with tall niches. In each niche rests a tablet of stone, flat and rectangular, edges chipped from age, surfaces crowded with inscriptions. Some are neat, careful, measured. Others look hurried, almost desperate. As though carved in panic, lanterns hang from chains above, their light falling unevenly, so that some tablets glow bright while others hide in shadow. At the far end of the hall sits a figure, draped not in the plain linen of scribes, but in layered robes dark as night. His face is hidden beneath a hood. Before him lies a low desk of black stone, and on it rests a single scroll sealed with a cord of gold thread. He does not look at you, yet you feel his presence like gravity, pulling every thought, every breath, into orbit round him. The scribe's bow. You follow, hesitant. The hooded figure does not return the gesture. He speaks, and his voice is not soft like theirs. It is measured, hard-edged, like stone grinding against stone. Ritual is belief, but law is power. The words cut through. The silence, you feel them settle into you, demanding space. The figure gestures toward the tablets along the walls. His scribe steps forward and begins to read. His voice is steady, but the words are sharp, clipped, designed not to soothe but to bind. The tablet he recites from speaks of boundaries who may enter the script chamber and who must remain outside. It names punishments for those who break the silence. For those who dare to write the sacred tongue at dawn or noon, the punishments are not vague. They are carved in detail. Fines of grain, exile, lashes across the back until the flesh splits. One tablet describes an entire family erased from the rolls of the empire because one child whispered the Dusk language at the wrong hour. The law makes no distinction between ignorance and rebellion. To miswrite is to defy, and to defy is to be unmade. Your stomach tightens. The beauty of the ritual, the softness of the chant, feels fragile now, ringed by steel. You realize belief alone does not sustain this empire. Belief without power would scatter like smoke. Law is the net that holds it in place. The hooded figure lifts his head slightly. Though you cannot see his eyes, you feel them fix upon you. He speaks again, slower this time, as if teaching a child. Words are not free. They are chains. They bind what they touch. The empire is bound by them, and so are you. He motions, and a scribe brings forth a tablet small enough to hold in your hands. Its surface is fresh, its edges sharp. The inscription upon it is short, just 3 lines, but as you read, you feel your mouth go dry. It is your name, written in strokes so precise they look like mirrors. Beneath it, a line you cannot translate, but somehow understand. Obligated by Dusk, accountable to law. You look up, startled. The hooded figure does not move. You entered the circle, he says. You spoke. Now the law holds you. A chill runs through you. You had thought yourself a visitor, an observer drifting like a shadow. But the empire does not recognize shadows. The moment you whispered the phrase, you became part of its language, and now part of its law. The scribes begin another recitation. This time the tablet speaks of hierarchy. Who may write the Dusk script? Who may read it? Who must remain silent? At the top of the list is the ruler himself, the one who sits beyond these halls, in chambers you cannot yet imagine. Beneath him, the keepers of law. Beneath them, the scribes, beneath the scribes. Those who carry words to the people but may not all to them. And at the very bottom the silent, the nameless, those who only receive and never return. You find yourself trembling, though you are unsure if it is fear or awe. The law is not just about punishment. It is architecture. It ranges. The empire like stones in a wall. To remove one stone is to risk collapse. To shift a single word is to endanger the whole. The hooded figure speaks again. Empires fall when words run free. They spread like fire, faster than soldiers, sharper than swords. So we bind them. We make them kneel. We teach them their hour, their place, their weight. He pauses, letting the silence deepen. Then, softer, and when they obey, the empire endures. You glance again at the tablets. So many laws, so many rules carved into stone. Each one a scar the empire carved into itself to keep from bleeding. You wonder how many lives these tablets have cost, how many voices they silenced. And yet, you cannot deny the gravity of them. Without such walls, perhaps the Dusk language would have dissolved centuries ago. Lost in the flood of ordinary speech, the scribes fall silent. The hooded figure lowers his head. The torches flicker at last, their steady flames bending slightly as if a wind has entered the chamber. You realize your audience has ended. The law has been shown. Its weight is now yours to carry. As you are led back through the heavy door, you glance once more at the carvings upon it. The words cut deep into the wood seem to pulse faintly, as though alive, as though aware of your gaze. For the first time, you feel the empire's language not just as beauty, not just as ritual, but as command. Every word has a cost. Every word has a chain, and you are now bound by both. The corridors feel different now. The walls, once steady and strong, seem to carry a faint tremor beneath your fingertips. The chants from the ritual still linger faintly in your chest. The iron weight of law still presses against your breath. But here something shifts. The silence is no longer sacred. It is brittle. You can hear it crack in the corners, in the long pauses between the footsteps of the scribes who guide you forward. You pass beneath an arch where the stone has darkened, streaked with water that has seeped for years without notice. The air smells faintly of dampness. Of age, your guide does not speak, yet you feel him hesitate for the first time, as if this place is less certain, less safe. The chamber you enter is not like the others. It is wide, but dim. Only a few lanterns burn, their light weak, unable to reach. The far walls, the floor is uneven, littered with fragments, slivers of wood, shards of clay tablets, scraps of parchment so brittle they crumble at the faintest breeze. Dust clings to the air, heavy, tasting faintly of ash. You kneel to touch one fragment. It bears half a word, a curve of ink so faded it looks like a shadow of itself. You realize these are not preserved. They're abandoned. This is where the empire's language goes to die. The scribe finally speaks, his voice hushed, as though afraid of being overheard by the ruins themselves. Not all words endure. Some falter, some betray. Some are abandoned before they can take root. His words echo softly. You glance round and begin to notice what he means. Among the fragments, you see inconsistencies, two versions of the same phrase, carved differently. One struck through with deep gouges, as though punished for existing. A parchment bears a script you recognize from the ritual chamber, but the letters are warped, uncertain, as though written by a trembling hand. You feel the weight of it, doubt. Even here, in an empire that binds words with ritual and law, there is space for weakness. Not everything survives the dusk. Not everything deserves to. The scribes do not chant here. They walk quietly, as though moving through a graveyard. One of them pauses beside a broken tablet and whispers, barely audible. This one was banned. Its author believed Dusk was not sacred, that words could be written at dawn and hold the same power. For this, his voice was silenced. His words brought here, where no one may honor them. You stare at the gouge across the stone, deep and violent, as though carved in anger. The thought unsettles you. If law is absolute, why does it need such violence? If ritual is eternal, why does it need to erase? Another fragment catches your eye. It is different from the others. The ink is not black but red, faint as dried blood. The strokes are elegant, careful, yet uneven, as if the hand that wrote them trembled not with fear, but with exhaustion. You lean closer, and though the language is not fully yours, you sense the meaning. It is not a law, not a prayer, but a question. What becomes of words when no one remembers? The line pierces you. You glance at the scribes, but they avert their eyes. This is not a fragment they won't notice. This is not a doubt they wish acknowledged. And yet, here it lies, surviving in silence. The chamber feels colder the longer you remain. You sense something the scribes will not say. Decay is not only in broken tablets or fading ink. It is in belief itself, a language that must be bound so tightly by ritual and law may already be weakening. Faith that cannot withstand questions may already be fractured. Your thoughts spiral. You remember the ritual, the smoke rising, the chant binding you in belonging. You remember the law, the tablets carved in stone, and yielding, eternal. And now you see this, words that faltered, doubts that bled through the cracks. Which of these is truth? Which of these is empire? The silence grows heavier. You almost hear voices in it, not the living voices of scribes, but the faint murmur of those long gone. You strain to listen, and for a moment, you imagine the chamber itself is speaking, not in full sentences, but in sighs, in fragments, in echoes. Words half remembered, prayers half forgotten. Doubts too dangerous to voice aloud. One echo stays with you. It is not heard so much as felt, a tremor through your bones. Every empire begins to die the moment it refuses to listen to its own doubts. You shiver. You do not know if the thought is yours, or if the chamber has placed it inside. You, the scribes, finally turn, motioning you toward another door. As you leave, you glance back one last time. The fragments lie scattered, abandoned, but not silent. Their decay carries a truth the rituals and laws could never admit. No language is eternal. No empire is immune. The door closes behind you with a heavy thud, sealing the chamber and its doubts away. Yet the words you saw, the red ink, the forbidden question, have already taken root in you. They will not fade as easily as the empire hopes. You walk on, uncertain now. For the first time since entering these halls, you wonder if Dusk is a blessing or if it is a mask to hide the cracks of a language slowly unraveling. The passage narrows as you move forward. The walls lean in, closer and closer, until you feel as though the empire itself is pressing against your shoulders. Your guide's lantern flickers, its glow trembling across the carved stone. And for the first time you notice how uneven the walls have become. Chisel marks scar the surface, some deliberate, some frantic, as if hands once worked here in secrecy. Rushing to alter, to erase, the air grows tighter. You taste iron on your tongue. Faint but insistent, somewhere ahead, you hear a sound not like chanting, not like the quiet hum of scribes, but sharp like the scratch of metal against stone. The guide does not explain. He only keeps walking until the corridor opens into a long chamber. Here the walls are covered in text, thousands of words carved directly into the stone, their shapes harsh, angular, uncompromising. But as you draw closer, you see something chilling. Lines of script have been gouged out, deep scars cutting across the words. Whole sentences are obliterated, their absence louder than presence. The gouges run thick and violent, as though carved, not by scribes but by soldiers. A scribe at your side whispers, almost too quietly to hear. These are betrayals, words that strayed, voices that questioned. They are erased so they may never be remembered. Your chest tightens, the walls look like battlegrounds. Each line that remains intact feels like a survivor, trembling beside its fallen kin. You run your fingers across the grooves of an erased section. The stone is rough, jagged, still sharp even after centuries. Whoever cut these words away wanted them to suffer, wanted them to be silenced not gently, but violently. The guide sets down his lantern, its light trembling across the scars. His face is grim. You must understand, he says softly. Betrayal is not always with sword or corn. It is with ink, with voice, with silence broken at the wrong time. These walls hold the memory of every betrayal. You step closer. Among the gouges, faint traces remain, letters not fully destroyed, fragments of strokes too deep to erase. You try to piece them together, and for a moment you glimpse a forbidden sentence. The dusk does not bind. The dusk deceives. The words vanish into broken stone, but the shock lingers. Someone once defied the very foundation of this empire's language. Someone risked everything to declare that dusk was not sacred but a lie, and for that, their words were cut from stone, their name erased, their voice buried here in this chamber of silence. The scribes do not meet your eyes. You realize they are afraid not of you, not of this moment, but of the words themselves. Even broken, even carved out, they still carry power. A sudden noise startles you. From deeper within the chamber, you hear the sound of chisels, sharp and rhythmic. Shadows move at the far wall, figures working even now, striking out fresh words, silencing them before they can live. You walk toward them, though your guide hesitates. As you draw near, you see scribes bent low, chiseling furiously, sweat running down their brows. They are erasing in real time. You watch as one word vanishes before your eyes. Each stroke tears the stone deeper, obliterating not just letters but meaning, memory, rebellion. The silence left behind feels heavier than the word itself ever could. One scribe pauses to wipe his brow. He sees you watching, and his lips tremble. In a whisper barely louder than breath, he says, "It is not betrayal to speak. It is betrayal to be heard." Then he lowers his chisel and strikes again. As though afraid of his own voice, your mind races. Betrayal is everywhere here, not just in the erased words, but in the silence of the living. Each scribe betrays his own doubt by chiseling against it. Each lantern betrays the shadows it was meant to comfort. Each gouge betrays the truth that once was. But the Empire calls this order. The Empire calls this loyalty. You walk along the wall, your fingertips grazing scars that stretch on endlessly. The gouges are deep, yes, but not perfect. You begin to see patterns. Words carved out in one place reappear in another, faint and trembling, as though even censorship cannot kill them fully. The language fights to survive, repeating itself in cracks, in fragments, in whispers carried by those who still dare to remember. The guide notices you're searching and grips your wrist tightly. "Do not read too deeply," he warns. His voice trembles for the first time. "If they see you searching, they will mark you too." The warning sinks into you like cold water. For the first time you feel watched, not by the scribes, not by the guide, but by the very chamber itself. The erased words seem to stare back, hollow and accusing. You wonder if betrayal is not simply an act against empire, but an act the empire commits against its own truth. A sudden gust extinguishes one lantern. The chamber falls into darker shadow. In the flicker, you imagine you see the erased words glowing faintly. Like embers hidden in ash, they are not gone. They burn in silence. Waiting for someone to notice, someone to speak. You feel the weight of choice pressing on you. Will you remember these fragments? Will you carry them forward, risking betrayal yourself? Or will you do as the scribes do, chiseling silence over memory, burying doubt beneath obedience? The chisels strike again, louder, harsher, echoing through the chamber like distant thunder. The empire erases and erases and erases. But you know now what they fear most. Not swords, not fire, but words that refuse to die. The chamber quakes faintly. Or perhaps it is only your heart. You realize this. Censorship is not the end. Betrayal is not the end. Words, once born, cannot be unmade. They hide in the cracks, in the air, in the blood of those who dare to listen. And you, whether you wish it or not, have heard them. The guide pulls you toward the far door, anxious to leave. As you step out, the sound of chisels fades. But the silence that follows is worse. In that silence, you carry the echo of erased voices. They whisper within you, insistent, immortal, and for the first time. You wonder, perhaps the true betrayal is not speaking forbidden words, but forgetting them. Corridors widen once again, the press of stone giving way to a broader hall that breathes with a different weight. The air is less suffocating here, though not lighter, thicker. Instead, with the scent of all, metal and parchment newly pressed. You hear the murmur of exchange before you see it, the steady clink of coins, the shuffle of ledgers, the quiet coughs of men hunched over tables where calculations are whispered as if they themselves were prayers. This chamber is not sacred in the way of rituals, nor rigid like the halls of law. It is something else alive, humming, restless, the economy of words dot at first. It seems strange. You had thought language to be ritual, myth, obedience. But here, you see it bought and sold. The scribes no longer chant in unison. They barter. They weigh sheets of parchment on brass scales, measuring by droplets as though it were gold. Coins pass from hand to hand, vanishing into sleeves as quickly as they appear. For the first time, you see not faith, not fear, but hunger. One scribe waves you closer. His eyes dart nervously to either side before he whispers, "Do you wish to buy a word, a true word? The kind that survives even after dusk." Before you can answer, he opens a small box. Inside lie strips of parchment, each with a single letter painted in careful black ink. They shimmer faintly, not glowing like ritual fire, but trembling as though holding back sound. He picks one up and presses it to your palm. You feel it pulse, faintly, like the beat of a small heart. 3 diners, he murmurs, for this one, and if you cannot afford coin, perhaps a favor will do. You hesitate. Can meaning truly be purchased? Can the Empire's most sacred possession, the dusk-bound language itself, be reduced to trade? The scribe reads your doubt in your eyes and smiles faintly, though the smile is tired. You think the Emperor keeps every letter under guard? No, he gives us scraps. We sell what we can. Even myths must eat. Round you, the trade grows louder. Parchment stacked like bricks, ink sold in tiny vials like medicine. Reed pens carved and honed as though they were blades. Everything has price. A fresh sheet costs the wage of a week's labor. A vial of ink twice that. A word already written, alive with Dusk's power too costly to imagine. One man argues loudly with another. You cheated me. You sold me here. Syllable already fading. He holds up a strip of parchment. its letter pale and wavering, as though refusing to hold its shape. The seller only shrugs. Not my fault you bought it at dawn. Words are strongest when acquired at dusk. You should know this. Coins clatter across the table, voices rising. The marketplace of language begins to sound not unlike the streets outside bargains, disputes, hunger disguised as commerce. And yet, beneath it all, something darker stirs. You notice how quickly transactions vanish when guards pass near, how ledgers are closed, how parchments are hidden in sleeves, how vials of ink slip into shadows. The economy of words is tolerated, but not sanctioned. It exists in the margins, a survival carved out between empire's laws. Your guide leads you deeper, the stalls thin, the noise dims, until you reach the farthest corner of the hall. There, away from the bustle, sits an old man with a single item on his table. Not ink, not parchment, not letters to be bartered. It tool-dotted as a chisel, one, but still sharp. Its handle darkened by countless hands. He strokes it gently, as one might stroke an animal, his eyes heavy with memory. This, he says, voice soft but steady, is worth more than gold. With ink, you can write a word. With parchment, you can preserve it. But with this, he taps the chisel lightly against the table. You can carve it into stone, and stone outlasts kings. You stare at the tool, its simple weight radiating, a strange gravity. Round you, traders barter for scraps, for fleeting syllables. But here, in this corner, sits the true economy, permanence, the power to carve words beyond dusk, beyond empire, beyond death itself. The old man leans closer. His whisper is rough, cracked, yet it cuts sharper than any chisel. But beware. Stone remembers not only truth, it remembers betrayal too. Once carved, nothing can be erased without leaving scars. You think of the chamber of censorship, the gouges carved into walls, the scars that screamed louder than the words themselves. The chisel carries weight, yes, but also danger. Still, you cannot look away. For the first time, you feel the hunger of ownership stir in you, to hold not just memory, but power. To inscribe dusk into eternity. The old man seems to sense it. He pushes the chisel closer across the table. What will you pay? You falter. You have no coin, no ink, no parchment to offer. And yet, part of you feels that price will not be in coin. Not here. The man studies your hesitation. His eyes soften. He murmurs, not yet, but soon. Every tongue that walks these halls must choose to write with ink or carve with stone, to eat words for survival, or give them weight beyond survival. He draws the chisel back, placing it gently at his side. One day, you will return, and you will know your choice. The silence that follows is heavy, almost reverent. Vow you, the murmurs of trade rise and fall, coins clinking, ink sloshing, arguments muttered. But the chisel gleams quietly, and touched, eternal. You realize the economy of this empire is not just coin and barter. It is survival itself. Every scribe, every trader, every whisperer must choose whether to buy and sell words like bread, or to carve them into permanence at the risk of ruin. Both pots are hunger, both are cost. As you turn to leave, a scrap of parchment brushes against your foot. You pick it up. The ink upon it trembles faintly, half faded, but not gone. It bears only a single phrase, hastily scrawled. Even silence is bought at a price. The thought chills you. You slip the parchment into your sleeve. No one notices, or perhaps they pretend not to. The economy flows on, blind to the theft of a single scrap. Yet you feel it burning against your skin, a reminder that you two are now part of the exchange. When you step out of the hall, the noise fades, the corridor stretches ahead, quiet once more. But your ears still ring with the clatter of coins, the scrape of chisels, the whispers of bartered dot, and in your heart, you carry a truth you cannot ignore. Language, even sacred, is never free. It is bought. It is sold. It is traded like bread in a hungry empire, and sooner or later, you two must decide what you are willing to pay. The corridor opens slowly, as if reluctant to reveal what lies ahead. The hush of trade, the scrape of chisels, the chants of ritual all fall behind you now, leaving a silence so complete it feels unnatural. For a moment, you almost long for the noise, the hum of survival. But here, there is only stillness. You step into a vast hall, and like the others, this one is not lined with words, not crowded with scribes, not filled with law or barter. Instead, it holds paintings, murals that climb the walls, sprawling scenes painted in pigments so vivid they seem alive even in the half-light of dusk. At first glance, the images overwhelm you. Here is the emperor, robed in gold, pen poised in his hand as divine light pours from the heavens onto the page he writes. Their scribes kneel in perfect unison, their eyes closed, their faces serene. As the dusk itself bends down to kiss their ink, the language looks effortless, holy, eternal. You almost believe it. Almost. But then you look closer. A line of paint chips from a figure's face, revealing stone beneath. His scribe's hand, once painted steady, has warped with time, fingers curled into something claw-like. The emperor's robe gleams still, but the gold leaf is peeling at the edges. A whisper rises beside you. Though no one stands there, this is the story they want you to see. Your eyes adjust. The murals are not singular. Beneath the grand scenes, fainter images bleed through, scratched outlines, half hidden by brighter paint, a scribe not kneeling but slumping in exhaustion, a page not glowing but blotched, its ink spilled in clumsy haste, an emperor's hand trembling as though, and sure of the words he writes. To layers, the myth above, the reality beneath. The hall stretches on. You walk slowly, your footsteps echoing against stone, each mural telling its version of truth. One shows children learning the Dusk language, their eyes wide with devotion, as though born already fluent. Yet beneath the paint, faintly visible, another truth, a boy struggling to form letters, his reed pen broken, his face streaked with frustration. Another mural shows soldiers carrying tablets of stone on their shoulders, the words carved unbreakable, their faces radiant with pride. But beneath the shine, you glimpse strain backs bent, knees buckling, lips pressed in pain, the weight of permanence crushing them long before glory could. Myth and reality blur, weaving together until you can no longer trust which is surface, which is shadow. Your guide walks ahead, but his steps are slow now. His shoulders sag. When he speaks, his voice is low, hesitant. Every empire paints itself. Do not think ours is different. These walls, they show what we wish to be remembered, not always. What was? He stops before one mural unlike the others. It is unfinished. The paint fades halfway across the wall, brushstrokes trailing into nothing, as though the artist abandoned it mid-work. On the left side, myth shines bright, the emperor dictating, scribes recording every word, Dusk's glow bathing them in holiness. But the right side bears stone, sketch lines unfinished, phases missing. The guide's voice breaks into a whisper. Reality was harder to finish. The silence deepens. You feel the weight of the whole pressing against you, not in stone, but in memory. How many generations walked through here, believing the surface, never looking beneath. How many closed, their eyes willingly, choosing comfort over fracture? Your own breath grows heavier. You remember the ritual smoke, the law's tablets, the censorship scars, the economy's barter. Now, in this hall of myths, you see how all of them weave a story larger than truth, that the language is eternal, flawless, divine, but beneath, reality gnaws at the edges, always there, always waiting to be seen. One mural stops you cold. At first, it seemed like the simplest of all, a single scribe at his desk, writing at dusk. His pen glides easily, his face calm, the page before him glowing. The myth is pure, unbroken, and yet look closer. His other hand, hidden in shadow, is clenched so tight the knuckles whiten. His wrist trembles faintly, his eyes, though serene, at first glance, glisten with exhaustion. You realize this is not serenity, but endurance. Not miracle, but survival, the myth tells you. Writing at dusk is effortless grace. The reality whispers, writing at dusk costs something you cannot see. You stare back. The murals loom, flickering between stories depending on how you look at them. Myth, reality, myth, reality. Both true, both false. The guide finally turns to you, his face weary. This is why they call it myth, not because it is false, but because it is only half the truth, and half-truth is heavier than lies. It binds harder, it comforts deeper, and it lasts longer. His words linger. You feel the hall watching you, waiting to see which layer you will choose. Will you walk away believing the glowing paint, or will you remember the sketches beneath, the fractures hidden? The exhaustion painted over. A draft stirs the air. Dust falls from the murals, soft as ash. You reach out and touch the wall. Pigment comes away on your fingers, staining them gold. Beneath, the stone is rough, unpolished, bare. You realize the truth then, sharp and unyielding. Reality is always beneath. Waiting, myths may glow, may comfort, may endure for centuries, but reality is patient. It does not vanish. It waits for the moment someone dares to scrape away the paint and look, and now. You have looked. You cannot unsee. The guide lowers his head, leading you toward the next door. As you step away, the murals blur in the corner of your vision. They seem to shift as you walk, some faces smiling, others breaking, the layers refusing to settle. You understand the danger now. Myths are not meant to be destroyed. They are meant to be lived beside, questioned in silence, remembered in fragments. To expose them fully would shatter the empire itself, and so you carry the fracture within you, both myth and reality trembling together. Neither will let go. The door creaks as it opens. Heavier than any before, a gust of air escapes, cool and strange, carrying with it a faint metallic scent, like rain before it falls, or ink spilled long ago. You step through, and the chamber beyond is unlike anything you have yet seen. It is circular, vast and silent. No murals cover the walls. No scribes bend over tablets. No chisels strike. Instead, the space is filled with pedestals, each one holding an object. Some are tablets of stone, cracked at the edges but still etched with words. Some are scrolls, rolled tight, their surfaces darkened with time. Others are fragments, no larger than your palm, broken pieces of something once. Greater. The chamber feels like a crossroads, neither archive nor shrine, but something in between, a place not of creation, but of reckoning. Your guide sets the lantern down at the center of the floor, its light spilling outward, touching the objects one by one. He speaks softly, as though even his words might disturb the balance here. This is where legacies are weighed, not written, not erased. We decide, at last, what endures. You walk among the pedestals, your eyes catching on the differences between them. Some tablets glow faintly, their carvings deep and sharp, as though they could never fade. Others are brittle, their words crumbling at the edges, flaking off into dust at the slightest touch. Some scrolls bear only fragments, phrases cut short mid-thought. Like voices silenced before finishing their truth, each one is a story, not just of what was written, but of what survived. You pause before a pedestal, bearing a broken shard of stone. Only 2 words remain visible. We remember, the rest is gone, lost to cracks and erosion, and yet those 2 words stand whole, as though refusing to surrender. You wonder if the missing lines were betrayal, or law, or prayer, but perhaps it no longer matters. What endures, endures. The guide joins you, his face lined with shadows. This is the turning. Every empire believes its words eternal, but eternity is a lie. Words live only as long as they are carried forward. And here, he gestures to the chamber, is where we learn what the language truly keeps. You realize then that legacy is not the writing itself, not the tablets or scrolls, but the fragments that survive the chisels, the erasures, the myths. Legacy is what remains after time has taken its share. At the far side of the chamber, you see a large tablet cracked down the center, leaning precariously against its pedestal. Its surface is carved with a proclamation, an edict perhaps, bold and unyielding. Yet the crack has split the words apart, scattering their meaning. Half of each sentence lies on one side, half on the other, broken into nonsense. You strain to piece them together. But the fracture makes it impossible. The authority of the edict is gone, crumbled by time, and still, even broken, the tablet stands. The guide touches it gently, his hand lingering on the crack. This was once law, now it is only stone. But perhaps, he glances at you, his eyes heavy with meaning. Perhaps stone is enough. Sometimes survival itself is the legacy. The chamber's silence grows thicker. You feel the weight of countless decisions pressing in, the choices of scribes who copied some words and let others fade. The judgments of those who deemed one story worth repeating and another worth erasing. Legacy is not only survival. It is choice. It is power. Your chest tightens as you realize you are standing in the Empire's most dangerous room. Not the halls of law, not the chambers of betrayal, but here where time and memory collide, where silence itself decides what will live. A faint sound echoes, so soft you wonder if you imagined it. A whisper, like people rustling. You turn and see one scroll trembling slightly on its pedestal. As though stirred by unseen breath, you draw closer. Its ribbon is frayed, its edges culling. You unroll it carefully, revealing faded lines written in trembling script. The words are not edicts, not rituals, not laws. They are confessions, a scribe. Perhaps writing of exhaustion, of doubt, of the endless weight of dusk. The final line is incomplete, cut short mid-sentence, the ink trailing. Into nothing, you swallow hard. This, too, is legacy, not myth, not command, but human fracture, preserved despite every effort to silence it. The guide's voice breaks the silence. You see it now. The turning point is not when words are written. It is when they are remembered or forgotten. You step back, the weight of the chamber pressing on you from all sides. Every pedestal whispers a different version of survival, some triumphant, some broken, some accidental. Together they form something larger, something more fragile than empire, a legacy that cannot be controlled, only endured. As you move toward the exit, the guide's lantern casts long shadows across the fragments. They stretch toward you, stairs. Though reaching for someone to carry them forward, you realize that you are already carrying them, and willingly. Unavoidably, their survival has become your burden. The chamber door closes behind you with a sound like final judgment. The legacy remains behind, heavy and unresolved. But its weight has already entered you. You know now that no empire controls its end. Words choose their own survival, long after their authors are gone, and you wonder, as you walk into the dim corridor ahead, which of these fragments will follow you, which will cling to your memory, outlasting even your own silence. That is the turning, not the empire's, not the guide's, but yours. The corridor grows narrower as you walk, the stone closing in, the lantern's glow pressed into a thinner and thinner shape. Your footsteps no longer echo. Instead, they sink into the silence, absorbed by the walls like water into sand. It feels as though the Chamber of Legacies has closed itself behind you, leaving you with no choice but to move forward into night at last. The corridor ends in a doorway without a door. Beyond it lies a courtyard open to the sky. You step into it slowly, your eyes adjusting to a different kind of light. The sun is gone. The horizon burns faintly with its last embers, a bruise of gold and purple fading into darkness. Above, the first stars appear, delicate and sharp. The courtyard is paved with marble, its veins catching the dying light, turning every stone into a fragment of water. At the center, a fountain trickles softly, its bowl surrounded by blossoms jasmine, night-blooming flowers, their fragrance already thick in the air. Here, the empire seems hushed. No scribes bend over tablets. No rulers pass their judgments. No chisels strike stone. The courtyard belongs to night alone. Your guide sets the lantern beside the fountain, but you notice it is no longer needed. Moonlight spills over the courtyard, softer and steadier than fire, filling the space with a clarity that feels both tender and merciless. The blossoms open wider under it, their petals like pale flames. The water in the fountain catches the stars, making it seem as though the heavens themselves have been broken and gathered here. You lower yourself onto the marble steps by the fountain. For the first time since you entered this labyrinth of words, you feel your body begin to rest. The air is cooler, easier to breathe. The silence, though deep, is no longer heavy. Your guide does not speak. He sits across from you, his hands resting in his lap, his eyes closed. It is as though night itself has claimed him. Slowly, your thoughts begin to quiet. The fragments you saw in the legacy chamber no longer shout inside you. They drift. Softer now, like leaves on water. You recall them, but their edges blur. The broken tablet, the unfinished confession, the words that refused to fade. They remain, but they no longer wound. They settle. The fountain's rhythm becomes your breath. Each drop falls with the precision of language, yet unlike the Dusk words. These sounds need no translation. Water writes directly into silence. Memory stirs, though you are not sure if it is yours or another's. You see a figure kneeling by a fountain centuries ago, washing ink-stained hands before prayer. The night is the same, the stars no different. Their silence was your silence, their breath your breath. For a moment, you are folded into them, a single voice in a chorus diverse to hear. The guide finally opens his eyes. He whispers, every empire ends in silence, not in fire, not in conquest, but in the breath before sleep. Words struggle, yes. Myths fracture, yes. But night always waits, always. You close your eyes, letting his words dissolve into the sound of water. Night presses gently against your skin, against your mind. The courtyard grows dimmer still, the lantern flickering and then dying, leaving only the moon to write its pale lines across the stones. Your breathing slows. You sense the Empire itself breathing with you. Palaces exhale. Libraries inhale. Gardens dream. The very language that could only be written at dusk loosens, disperses, drifting back into the air from which it came. For the first time, you feel no need to hold it. No need to carve it into stone, to guard it with whispers, to mourn its erasures. Language does not belong to you. It belongs to silence, and silence, at last, claims it. The fountain continues, a lullaby of falling drops. The blossoms sway in the faint breeze. A bird, unseen, shifts on its perch, settling for the night. You realize you are not afraid. Sleep is not erasure. It is continuation in another form. The dusk language is not lost. It waits in the pause between day and night, in the rhythm of water. In the memory of stars. Your head grows heavy. Your eyes close fully now. The marble beneath you is cool, steady. The last thing you hear before sleep is the guide's whisper. Carried on the fountain's rhythm, you were never just a witness. You are the language itself, and the night has written you. Silence deepens, the Empire breathes, and you sleep. The night holds you longer than you expect, even after sleep claims you. It does not release you entirely. It carries you gently. Like a river moving through unseen valleys, dreams rive. But they are not dreams in the usual sense. They are fragments, lines of dusk language you saw in the chambers, words carved into stone, whispers you overheard. They float around you, without sequence, without demand. Some glow faintly. Others crumble midair into dust. Yet all of them drift with you as you sink deeper. When you stir again, you do not know if moments or centuries have passed. The courtyard remains, unchanged, the fountain still singing, the blossoms still open. The moon still casting its pale writing across marble. But something is different. The silence feels closer now, almost intimate. The guide is gone. Only the lantern remains, and lit. Its presence is less a comfort than a reminder. You are now alone with what you carry. You sit for a while by the fountain, watching the ripples. They seem endless, though each one disappears almost as soon as it forms. This is legacy. You think, not the permanence of words, but their dissolving. Their disappearance is part of their life. Slowly, you rise and cross. The courtyard, the night sky greets you, vast and unreadable. You tilt your head back, and for the first time you realize that the stars are also a kind of language, an ancient script. One you were never taught to read. Perhaps no one was. Or perhaps every culture, every empire, invented its own translation, each believing it to be the truth. And yet the stars themselves remain silent, indifferent, eternal. You breathe deeply, the cool air filling you, grounding you. Something soft brushes against your feet. Looking down, you see fallen jasmine petals scattered across the marble. Their fragrance is stronger now, though they have already begun to wither. You bend and lift one in your palm. It is delicate, trembling, fragile enough to collapse at the faintest touch. Yet in this moment, in your hand, it holds all the weight of empire. This, too, is language. This, too, is memory. You close your fist gently, then release it. The petal drifts away, claimed by night. A question rises within you, unbidden. Which words will remain when I am gone? Which fragments will survive me? The answer does not come. Perhaps it never will. But in the quiet of this courtyard, under the gaze of stars and moon, you begin to understand that not every story demands survival. Some are written only to soothe a single night, to carry a single listener into sleep, and then vanish, and that vanishing is not failure, it is freedom. You step toward the edge of the courtyard. A narrow path leads away, back into shadow, back toward a world you can barely remember. You hesitate. Part of you wants to remain here forever, in this suspended moment of moonlight and silence. But you know you cannot. Even silence asks you to move on. At the threshold, you pause one final time. The fountain murmurs behind you, the blossoms sigh in the breeze. You close your eyes, memorizing the sound, the scent, the stillness. You realize you are no longer only a visitor. The Empire's myth has folded you into itself. You are now part of the Dusk language, the unfinished fragment, the confession half-written. The silence that carries meaning without words, and with that realization, you take your first step beyond. The world does not shatter, the Empire does not vanish, but you feel something subtle shift, as though the story itself has closed its last page. You walk into the darkness, carrying not tablets, not scrolls, not laws, but a memory, the quiet truth that language was never stone, never ink, never power. Language was always breath, and breath cannot be captured. It can only be lived and released. The silence welcomes you. The story is over, but it has not ended. And now, listener, because you are still here, awake or drifting, carried by this myth, I must turn gently toward you. You have walked through archives of dusk. You have inhaled the dust of forgotten halls. You have bent over fragments that should not have survived but did. You have seen the Empire's silence outlast its commands. You have watched language dissolve into night, and still, you remained. So I ask you, if you were given one word, only one, to carve into stone, knowing it must endure or vanish with time, what would it be? Would you write hope? Would you write silence? Would you write nothing at all? Letting the blank surface speak louder than any syllable. Tell me, quietly, if you wish, or keep it within you, letting it dissolve like a jasmine petal at dusk. And if you are drifting towards sleep now, know this: you are part of a rare few who carry ancient voices in their blood. The Dusk language has chosen you tonight. It will live in your dreams, in your silence, in your breath. Sleep well, traveler. Sleep well, storyteller. The Empire has closed its eyes. Now so may you.